This is the RCMP headquarters in Yellowknife. It is a relatively chilly Friday afternoon. And the reason I'm here is because the police in the NWT have a new tactical armored vehicle. We have not seen one of these things in the Northwest Territories before. They cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're going to get a little bit of a look around one, although not all of one, and a chance to talk about why this thing is necessary from the police perspective in the NWT. A subtle piece of kit we've got behind us here, Chris. Tell us what I'm looking at. I know it's called a TAV. That's about all I got.
Yeah, this is our newly acquired tactical armored vehicle here in the Northwest Territories. So it's the first of the kind up here in the territories.
Before we get into the why of all of this, let's just go and have a look at the thing. Obviously, it's built like a brick outhouse, as my granddad would say. What do we need this for? Because it looks like it could cut through just about anything. What's the point of one of these?
Yeah, so the point is not to cut through anything. This is a ballistically protective vehicle. So if we're involved in a critical incident, whether that's an active threat or an armed and barricaded or a hostage rescue, this part of our fleet allows us to forward deploy resources in a safe manner that's going to be protected from projectiles, including firearms.
What actually does what here? What helps you out about the way this is designed and some of the features of this?
Well, I think the first thing is the sheer presence of it. This can be an intimidating piece of equipment that could change the trajectory of that behavior into compliance. Certainly today, we're not going to talk about tactics, but the actual functionality of the vehicle it's a barrier. So you can move people inside. So our emergency response team and our tactical members, they can forward deploy, as well as if you can imagine that if we have to rescue a civilian who's been injured in a hot zone of sorts, we can have members who are holding onto the handles. They can be opposite of wherever that threat is coming from and go in, surge, rescue that individual, and remove them out so they get medical attention.
This is a huge, and I'm sure it's a pretty heavy piece of kit. I think I just heard someone say 22,000 pounds.
It's 22,000 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Obviously, you got to know how to use a piece of equipment very carefully like this. What kind of training do you go through before you're allowed to be in operation of this vehicle?
Yeah, so the manufacturer is going to come up. So it's a Canadian-built asset. The manufacturer is going to come up. They're going to train the trainers, so to speak. So we're going to have people who can know the limitations, how fast it can go, what the turning radius is, those sorts of things. And then that's the functionality aspect of it. Then there's the whole emergency response team functionality and how are they going to work with this new piece of equipment in the territory.
That being the case, when do you expect this to actually be out doing its thing?
You know what? If we had something that was an active threat ongoing now, we would put it into use. We're not going to hold that back.
If you can, Chris, in a little more detail, set out for me, like, why now was a good time to get this? You mentioned before there was a previous version of this. It didn't come to the NWT. Why does this one need to be here? What changed?
We've seen a lot of instances across the country where tactical support is necessary to change the trajectory of the person who's in crisis or who's having the violent behavior. This asset here is going to provide the protection to the members who are going to respond to that. They're going to be able to forward deploy into areas and scenes that would previously have been denied.
Realistically, is this a Yellowknife vehicle in terms of how quickly you can deploy it to somewhere to make a difference in an evolving scenario?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So to answer it, candidly, no, this is not a Yellowknife vehicle. We see this going anywhere within the road network within the Northwest Territories. It's not always unfolding in active events where something like this would be employed. There are high-risk search warrants. There are high-risk arrests. There are other situations where this piece of equipment would be utilized.
But when I think of situations, for example, there was a shooter situation in Inuvik not so long ago. This is a huge piece of equipment. I can't imagine how it would get there in time to make a difference. Is there a plan to eventually have more of these? Or is it a case of we're going to get one, we've just got to make the best of that one that we have and deploy it to the best of our ability?
Yeah, it's going to be the latter of the two there. These are not cheap pieces of equipment. We're going to use it as fully as we can.
The community response that I've seen to this has been quite varied in the sense that I've seen a lot of people appreciative that this is here. I've also seen some people say, for example, man, wish we could have had a police dog unit in Hay River for the money that cost. And I've seen other people, for example, a councillor in Inuvik, say the money that we spent on this great big machine could have been spent on, say, mental health counselling and other services like that. Now, recognizing that it's not always as simple as that in terms of where the money comes from and how these things are procured, what do you say to people who say, couldn't the police have spent some money differently here? Couldn't we have had a dog unit in Hay River? Was this the number one thing we needed in the NWT to help police do their jobs?
Yeah, so this was certainly a requirement up here. As we continue to grow our emergency response team and critical incident programs across the country, this is something that's a key piece of equipment. Again, in order to keep the police officers who are responding safe, they have taken the oath and they are putting themselves in harm's way. We have an obligation as an employer and morally to provide them the protection that they need to get the job done. When I look at other emergency services, for example, our friends over at the fire department, you know, there's a fire truck that, you know, is maybe upwards of $3 million, and it doesn't go out every day either, right? But it's there in case the emergency presents.
You mentioned there that a fire truck costs upwards of $3 million. What does one of these cost?
This one here is about $580,000.
We talked a little bit about sort of the training and everything else. How many different people will be part of the team that's actually involved with using this?
So the critical incident program is not only one group of people. So there are a number, right? So we have our emergency response team. We would have operators specifically delegated to the tactical armored vehicle. We'd have our crisis negotiators. We would have a number of people who are going to, you know, be utilizing this vehicle. You know, and speaking candidly, it's not going to be used by the frontline members to do daily patrols, right? Like, this thing is not going to be driving up and down the streets and showing up at people's houses where the police are just going to, you know, take statements and, you know, follow up on their investigations. These are for those critical high risk incidents where a team needs to be deployed to support the frontline members.